Okay, guys. So normally the way kind of thought I wanted to do this would just be having one show a week, but there's so much to talk about on the NFL alone, and just the whole college football, NBA, also hockey, baseball. I'll probably talk about that this weekend as well. I thought, okay, one Friday show would probably not cut it, especially with the World Cup also going on at this time of the year as well. Normally it'd be no summer, but obviously kind of plans change. So I'm gonna just have another show right now, and then you're still gonna have the Friday show every week. But obviously, if there's more to talk about, I'll probably have at least maybe one, two more every week as well. So this will mainly be about players, kind of also some team narratives as well. I have kind of a lot to say about the NFL. So my first thing would be there's a quarterback out there. He has 3,352 passing yards and 22 passing touchdowns, which are good for eighth and fifth best in the league, respectively. And those kind of numbers, who do you think I'm referring to? Would it be like Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, maybe even Kirk Cousins? Well, it's none of those guys. I said, oh, it's Jared Goff. So I know a lot of people are kind of surprised, but I think Jared Goff has been really underrated this year. I understand he plays for the Lions. No one really cares about the Lions, especially for not from the Detroit area. But he's been having a respectable season. They've won the last five. They won the last 5 games out of the 6 games they played recently. And then the only team they lost to were the Buffalo Bills, who are the number one seed in the AFC, and they're generally considered a Super Bowl favorite. And that's the only team they've lost to. So that's one thing you really have to consider. They're only 2 games back right now from a wild card spot, and they're still technically in the running for the division. I doubt they win it because the Vikings still have a really surmountable lead on them, but they did beat them on Sunday, so that does kind of still open up mathematical possibilities, of course. And then if they do get in that seventh seed, um, the other competitor for it would probably be the Giants, and then they get in over the Giants because they had a tiebreaker because they shut down Saquon Barkley in that squad earlier this year. So the reason why this happened because the Lions have been awful the last few years. I'm not gonna beat it on the bush. They had Dan Campbell kind of coming the first year, still a little bit rough, and then they had the Matt Patricia years where it was just a barren wasteland. But now they've kind of turned it around. They're a lot more of a respectable squad, and then this will not be possible without Jared Goff becoming a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. And I have another fun stat to kind of throw at you guys. Matthew Stafford, obviously we know they traded the 3 first round picks for him to basically replace Goff. Through the 9 games he played this year, obviously he's been out of the lineup and now he's done for the year basically. He had 2,087 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 8 picks. Jared Goff through the first 9 games had 2,277 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions as well in the first 9 games he played. Needless to say, Jared Goff has had more yards, a better passer rating as well. Because going back to that, Matthew Stafford had an 87.4 passer rating and Jared Goff had a 93.7. And he had more touchdown passes and less picks than Stafford through those games as well. And I'm not going to lie, I know as a 49er fan, obviously, if you're seeing the camera right now, I did contribute to a lot of kind of Jared Goff slander and all that stuff, especially when he was with the Rams and they kind of fell off in that 2019-2020 period of their of that Sean McVay, Jared Goff era. But now that he's been in Detroit, I think that has probably been the best thing that's happened to him in his career. That kind of sounds weird because Detroit is kind of where a lot of people meme on where careers go to die, but Dan Campbell has been a big part of his personal turnaround. I feel like Jared Goff is just way more fired up in Detroit. I feel like a lot more he's the man in Detroit than he was ever in LA. And I'm glad that he's had the weapons. They've drafted good. They've gotten good free agents. They had Jamal Williams, who I believe was part of the Packers. They still have DeAndre Swift. They got Amon-Ra St. Brown for a steal. He was a mid-round pick, and then there was plenty of wide receivers taken above him. And then Josh Reynolds has been pretty decent. They got Jameson Williams also for him to kind of have like a speedy target as well. And other than the Patriots and Cowboys games, which have been the outliers this season, he's kept his team just about every game. All the times, if the Lions do fold, it's because of defense, and even then, the defense has been clamping down a lot more, which is great to see, of course. And then I hope that the Lions do keep Jared Goff as their long-term replacement, and I'm kind of hearing through just a lot of kind of rumors that their plan is to get Jared Goff more help, probably on the defensive side of the ball, if I had to guess, and not try to replace him like they probably thought they were going to this season. Because I thought Jared Goff would be more of a bridge quarterback, but this season, with those stats I've been telling you, he's a top 10 quarterback, and you don't really want to replace the top 10 quarterback unless they're obviously aging out. And right now, he's still relatively young, so I hope that they do get that defensive help. They get him more weapons, of course, and they shore up that defense a little bit. And then kind of going from one quarterback to another, we have Trevor Lawrence right now, and Trevor Lawrence was the first overall pick, and he was been hyped since high school probably, and he's been the number one overall pick since he couldn't really. He's been the number one prospect to kind of clarify that for a while now, and I'm surprised there's not more hype about his season. Obviously, kind of similar to Jared Goff. They played for the Jags, which I understand not a very popular team. Probably not a lot of people outside of Jacksonville really are talking about them, but not Jared. Trevor Lawrence has been absolutely lights out the last few weeks, and I understand that another reason why people are not really paying attention to his great performance he's been having is because he still had that bad rookie season, which kind of dampened the expectations a little bit. But I'm not going to give that season too much weight just because it had Urban Meyer. There was so much drama. There was like no talent on that team. And at least this season, even if the Jags did overpay for some of his weapons, it's better than doing nothing. And Doug Peterson may not be the best coach in the world, but he's just so much better than Urban Meyer. That's such a big impact, especially for a young quarterback's development. And in the last 3 games, Trevor Lawrence has thrown 7 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. The Lions game is kind of the outlier in that. I think that they kind of fired up the Jags a little bit more because before that, they beat the Ravens, who lead their division, by the way, with Lamar Jackson. So he was fully healthy that game. And he had 3 touchdowns that game. And then I know for a fact he had that game-winning drive and that 2-point conversion at the end, which was super clutch. And then going to the Titans, they had not won in Tennessee since I believe 2013, 2014, one of those kind of periods of time. And they trounced them. And he got over 350 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game as well. And because of that, if they do win out against the Cowboys, Jets, and Titans, they have a real shot of winning the AFC South. It's not that hard of a division. It's not like the NFC East, for example, where it's just a bloodbath of every team has a winning record. I generally believe that because the Titans are really one-dimensional, but they can really win the AFC South. The only thing is the Cowboys and the Jets, can't really believe I'm saying the Jets are a good team going into this year. That's kind of crazy, but they've also been a really good team. The Cowboys have a crazy good defense, and they've kind of blanked a lot of quarterbacks. So we'll kind of have to see what the next games show us, and I'll come back to this later on. But it's great to see that Trevor Lawrence has been doing really good recently and that the Jags have been kind of resurgent. But the next few games, especially the Cowboys game, will be a really big litmus test to see where they're at going forward. So, in recent weeks, kind of going back to what I said about the Jets, they benched their number 2 quarterback, the number 2 pick, who was their quarterback, Zach Wilson, recently for a former 5th-round pick, Mike White, who's also drafted by the Cowboys, which is kind of a fun fact for you. Kind of going back to Mike White though, because this is kind of his segment. He's not been anything special this season. I'm not gonna say that he's like Josh Allen, Mahomes, one of those quarterbacks, but he can run the Jets offense pretty well, much better than what Zach Wilson, who's been having kind of the maturity issues, and what Joe Flacco can do, especially because he's a little bit older in his career right now. But the main thing that kind of earned Mike White's trust for me, at least for being the Jets quarterback, and especially the long-term future, was this. Buffalo Bills game was brutal. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to beat around Bush. They only lost by 8 points, but it felt much worse on this. And the crux of this issue would be that the Bills defense absolutely was rocking on Mike White. They had 2 hits in particular that literally knocked him out of the game for periods of time. There was the one hit where he had to sit out for a couple series, and then there was another hit as well where he got sent to the locker room, and it really looked like, hey, this is pretty concerning. But the thing about Mike White is he just plays through it, which is just something that you have to respect. And the whole time during the CBS broadcast where they were airing the game, at least in my area, Mike White was just in a lot of pain. He was grimacing visibly whenever he would just take a jog back, and that shows he has a lot of heart, a lot of grit, a lot of those kind of intangible features. A lot of people like to talk about, especially franchise quarterbacks. But Mike White really showed those features on Sunday. Even if they didn't win, it's still something to look forward to. And I understand they might want to throw in Wilson or Flacco because Mike White is banged up, but I still think as long as Mike White can play, that he would be the better option, just because he has the most respect in that locker room for sure, and he has the kind of best physical tools. Obviously, when he's a little bit healthier, and he can still run the offense at a pretty decent level. It's been for like 5 minutes from when I last started recording. I literally just went to go get a water break. Next topic is Steve Wilks. And the reason why I kind of want to talk about him is because as the interim head coach of the Carolina Panthers, he's been doing a decent job. He's only gone 4-4. That might not match you, but as I mentioned before, Jared Goff winning 5 of the last 6 games and losing only 1 to the Buffalo Bills. But with how bad the Carolina Panthers look this season, especially with Matt Rule, they really started the season 1-5, and the fact he got such a quick turnaround is impressive because when you have to think about it, the turnaround, as in the amount of people they've let go, has been crazy. They traded Robbie Anderson, probably his first game coaching. He literally lost Christian McCaffrey, their best weapon. Baker Mayfield, they had all that drama, all that kind of media attention. He got benched. He got benched again to a third string, and then he ended up getting released. He went to the Rams, did good there. That's another topic kind of discussed on the stream and also my last show. But the fact there's been so much trauma, so much players kind of getting released, falling off, traded, all that kind of stuff. Most people thought he was really just hired by their owner, David Tepper, just to be a tank commander, kind of lay down and die, get a good draft pick at least. But that's not what Wilks has been doing. Wilks has his team locked in, and on Sunday they had a good win over Seattle, who's trying to fight for a division spot, especially against the 49ers, which is on Thursday, a couple days from now. And they're still trying to get out, if at least not that, at least a wild card spot. And that's one thing that Steve Wilks needs to get more credit for. I understand the Panthers, once again, the kind of the common narrative is that a lot of these are not the most popular teams in the world, but he needs some more recognition for what he's doing, just because the Panthers are not a good team to exactly kind of start a coaching resume to get some wins with, but it's pretty awesome to see what he's doing right now. And then the Panthers are not out of it quite yet. The NFC South, another bad division. Their best team is 6-7, which is the Brady Buccaneers, and then they beat them this season already. So if they beat them again and or continue to play the way they're playing, they have a real shot of winning their division, even if it's 9-8 or under 500. It's a genuine division win, and they get to host a playoff game. Even if they do get bounced in the first round, going from being at the bottom of the standings, being like looking like a lock for number 2, number 3, even maybe number 1 overall pick at some point in the season, to hosting a playoff game, that's an exciting turnaround, and the Panthers fandom kind of needs it. They've had a lot of kind of mixed seasons. They don't really know what they're doing, as in management, especially Tepper and the ownership, because he's a little bit more hands-on, and I understand that they wanted to compete, but with Cam Newton kind of having a physical decline, a lot of their weapons are kind of falling off as well. A guy like Luke Kuechly retiring pretty early in his season, in his career as well. A lot of that stuff does affect how they kind of plan things out, and they thought Baker would kind of be a quick fix, and they thought Sam Darnold would too, but none of those options have really worked out quite yet. So obviously, if they do not get the division, they'll probably hopefully trade for a quarterback, maybe go up in the draft to get a quarterback as well. Who really knows with that? But the Panthers have a decent roster. They have a decent secondary. I know they have J.C. Horn, who has been a pretty good player recently. And then they have some young talent on their offense as well. Obviously they used to have Robbie Anderson, but DJ Moore still had that crazy touchdown over the Falcons, which obviously he had that really stupid penalty, but that was still an amazing play. And it's just the only thing they've kind of been missing is just that quarterback spot, and hopefully, if they win the division, they don't, whatever kind of happens, they do find that quarterback going forward. But a team that has a quarterback but has still been struggling is gonna be the Cardinals, which it was funnily enough Steve Wilks' last team when he was the head coach, but that he was hired as a tank commander and he was fired after 1 year for Cliff Kingsbury, who is gonna be kind of at my ire for this next segment. There's no really easy way to put this, I should say it, but the Cardinals are cooked for the season. On Monday Night Football against the Patriots, Kyler Murray had a non-contact ACL tear on the first drive of the game that killed a lot of momentum. It's hard for players, coaches. It's just hard to kind of just play the game. I can only imagine how they feel after seeing that happen, seeing their quarterback go down, and it was even kind of hard to watch, is because a lot of players went down that game as well. But the Kyler Murray one still was unfortunately the most brutal one to watch. But this kind of leads just into a bigger point about the Cardinals. It's just that I mentioned they're cooked for the season, obviously. They have a losing record. They've been really bad at home. I'll get more into that a little bit. Kyler Murray's out for the season, but they're going to be cooked for a while. Just because if last year was the best I got with this core, where it was a kind of like a late season slump, they kind of snuck in the playoffs barely, and then they got bounced in the first round. It's going to be a long couple of years for the Cardinals fans, because Steve Keim, the GM, got extended through 2027 along with their coach Cliff Kingsbury, and Kyler Murray had that big money extension through 2028. So the main reason why I suggest that it's going to be a long while for Cardinals fans, because they've only gone 28, 33, and 1. No playoff wins in this Kingsbury, Kyler, Keim kind of regime. And obviously, I mentioned before, they had that 11-0 start, nice start, but then they flamed out, got bounced by the Rams, who won the Super Bowl. And I feel the main reason why they kept all these the GM, the coach, and Kyler is just because Bidwell didn't want Kyler to just basically leave the second he could to like a big market team, because it's obvious Kyler Murray has a little bit more of a social media presence. He loves streaming, he loves video games, he loves going on Instagram. That's how a lot of that drama kind of started. Once again, keep doing this, but I'll talk about that in a quick second. So I feel this was kind of a desperation move, but now they have so much big money, long-term deals tied up with key positions. But the thing is, Steve Keim probably didn't deserve that contract extension, because obviously it's kind of unfair for me to say, oh, who should get an extension, who shouldn't. But he has one playoff game that he won in 10 years of being a general manager. That is not good at all. Most teams, if they don't even accept that in like 3 years of only having one playoff win, unless they're obviously rebuilding. But Kyler Murray is also having issues with the coach as well, which is very concerning, because they're going to have to deal with each other for a while, because Kyler Murray has not really shied away from talking about his problems with Cliff Kingsbury, because I'm directly quoting him here when he says, schematically, we're kind of fucked. I believe that game was against the Vikings. Could be wrong on that. I'll have to double check on that. But it shows there's a lack of cohesion if your quarterback is saying schematically we're fucked. That's what he said, not me. That's his words, not mine. I don't really like swearing like that. Obviously, I don't want YouTube to kind of demonetize me, but that is what Kyler Murray said. And I don't really know the full, obviously, I wouldn't know the full extent of kind of the situations of what is going on with Kyler, Cliff, Keim, and all that, and the rest of that locker room, because obviously Hard Knocks does kind of provide a little bit of insight, but they're gonna shy away, especially with the Benjamin. He got waived, and I'm not really sure why. He was playing pretty decently with the Cardinals this year, and then there was the Sean Kugler stuff where he got fired in Mexico City. That did not get covered. Maybe tomorrow I'll have to see if it does get covered tomorrow. I'll watch it. I will let you guys know what kind of happens, but the Cardinals, since I've been really paying attention to the NFL, they've been in drama just about every season, and it's not just like kind of like the normal drama every team goes through with injuries, maybe some coaching and all that fun stuff. It's been always something different, always something unique. I have to give them credit because they have a good. They're entertaining off the field, but that's not exactly what your football team to be known for, because they have two late season collapses in 2020 and 2021. I remember 2020 specifically because my Niners with CJ Beathard at quarterback, I believe, knocked them out, and they could have secured a playoff spot because they went 8-8, lost the tiebreaker to the Bears, I believe, and if they went 9-7, beat the Niners that game, they would get the playoffs. But because Cliff Kingsbury is known for his second half season collapses, they went out of the playoffs entirely that year. 2021, I'm gonna keep hammering this home, but there was that 11-0 start. They lost to Green Bay in prime time, and they never were the same since then. Then we have the homework clause in Kyler Murray's contract, which led to plenty of funny memes. I'm not gonna lie, I had my fair share of laughs looking at those memes of the wording of that contract. Which, as someone who's going to college for business, I understand that contracts will eventually get out, but the wording on that just made Kyler Murray seem so juvenile and immature, such as he couldn't have any digital devices when he was doing film study. He had to do film study like a lot of amount of time. I forgot the amount of time when I read the contract, but that's not something you paid Kyler Murray. Let me see how much he got paid. But going back to that statement about him getting paid, you don't pay someone $230 million over 5 years, and then you also you have to do your film study. That's most quarterbacks do their film study. You follow any contract. I've never heard about anything like that. Like, that's something like a teacher would do, like, for a contract. Something a parent does, and for like their kid, you have to do your study before, and you can't play video games, you can't look at iPad or whatever when you do that. That's just not something that speaks very highly of Kyler Murray's character. And the fact the Cardinals thought they had to put that in is also a damning statement. But then when it got on social media, like everything does now, it's a very digital age, they removed it, and that shows how willing they are to back off from things like that. So, like, the one thing they were pretty firm on, you have to do your film study. The second people memed on it, they kind of had their laughs at the Cardinals' expense. They took it off, and that's just been the theme of the Cardinals. Just whenever anything gets hard for them, whenever they have adversity of tough teams playing them, injuries, or coaching getting fired for whatever reason, turnover, they just don't come back. They don't fight back, and that's the thing. The Cardinals have always kind of been like that. That's what's been the story of the Kyler, Cliff, kind of trio of this Arizona Cardinals teams recently. And then obviously they have the DeAndre Hopkins trade. That's a good trade for them. They absolutely fleeced the Texans, but him getting caught with performance enhancing drugs and the steroid scandal that came with it, and him getting that 6-game suspension, that just leads to more drama. And then obviously people don't take DeAndre Hopkins seriously, because I know for a fact Charvarius Ward, cornerback for my team, called him steroid boy, and I know a lot of other cornerbacks and defensive backs have been kind of memeing on DeAndre Hopkins just because of that PED scandal. And then obviously you lose your best weapon for 6 games, which sucks. And then the Cardinals trade for Hollywood Brown. They trade a first-round pick probably just to make up for those 6 weeks they knew they were going to have without him. Hopefully, they're hoping that they'd kind of mesh, but Hollywood Brown unfortunately had a really bad foot fracture against Seattle earlier this year. So this was, I think, their first game they're supposed to all play together with Kyler Murray. There was also going to be AJ Green, but he's kind of fallen off pretty heavily. But he was supposed to be a wide receiver too, but he kind of just disappeared. But it was supposed to be Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, James Conner was supposed to be healthy. But then still, even with all those guys healthy, Rondale Moore still hurt. And then also as well as Zach Ertz, he was supposed to be their kind of big body receiver, their tight end, but he also just got hurt as well, and that's just been another thing as well. Going into this kind of season, there's been a lot of injuries, unfortunately, but they haven't really been able to kind of get past it. Because I know there's been a lot of injuries for a lot of teams this year, but the fact that some teams are able to just keep grinding through it, like the Jets have had Quinnen Williams, I believe, has been missing some time as well. Obviously, they benched their quarterback, but then their stud running back, who's the rookie, Brees Hall, also gets hurt as well. But they still kind of keep their heads above water. Might not be the best winning, but also my team as well, the Niners. They lost Trey Lance. They then lost Jimmy G. They have Brock Purdy playing, but then they still kind of are able to win games with that as well. That's another thing you kind of have to consider with a lot of teams, that even the Bills, they lost Von Miller, they lost Micah Hyde, and they barely got takeaway Trey as well, and they've been able to still win games, and that's Micah Hyde and Von Miller matter a lot to that defense, and the fact they're still performing, especially the way they performed on Sunday, testament to how good their coaching is and how when things get tough, they're not going to back down. But I feel, kind of going back to the Cardinals once again, they do that. They don't, when things get tough, they just kind of fold, and that's been the story of the last few years. And another thing to go with that is they have a 1-7 home record this year, and that's just horrible. Just because they have a loyal fan base in Arizona. When they went over there in March and a couple months before, after that, of course, they had a lot of fans out there. I remember seeing a lot of people kind of Cardinals gear. Their stadium was very big and very nice as well. And people do care about their sports in Arizona. And the fact they have a 1-7 home record is just really sad. And their fans deserve better. I have a good friend who's an Arizona Cardinals fan, and he's just been miserable the last few years. But the last few weeks especially, he's really just been kind of let down, just because they've had bad slumps and they have not been looking good the last few weeks especially. But they're supposed to have Cliff Kingsbury, this offensive genius, Kyler Murray, number 1 overall pick, but nothing's really come of it except that one wild card appearance where it was just an appearance. They didn't win anything, and it got blown out pretty badly by the Rams, who made quick work of them. And then obviously, as a 49er fan, as you mentioned before, it's kind of fun to see this just because there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of kind of soap opera-ness, but it's just a genuine meltdown on a lot of levels, and it's just not one thing. It's a full. It's the owner trying to play it safe by just making all these guys stay long term. It's the GM signing talented players. He got D Hop. He has Rondale Moore. He got Zach Ertz. He got Hollywood Brown. Those are talented players, but nothing's really come of that. When it comes to coaching staffs, Cliff Kingsbury's supposed to be an offensive guru, but Kyler Murray's arguing with him on how things should be, and that's not how teams should be ran. And it's just another lost season for the Cardinals, and that sucks because their fans deserve better, and I think a lot of the players want change as well, but because they have all those contracts kind of going on, and especially those extensions, I doubt changes can happen for at least a couple more years, where maybe the owner can get a little bit more money or find some kind of loophole in the contracts, or have some kind of win contracts to pay them out and have a little bit less of a hit. But that just sucks, and I feel bad for the Cardinals, even if they are a rival, and even if they do, like last year they swept us, and I know they've given us a hard time in a couple games as well, but it just sucks to see. And when I was kind of writing this video, kind of planning it out, I didn't know I had a lot to say about the Cardinals, especially in the negative light, especially with how badly the last few seasons have gone. So let's end on a more positive note. Let's talk about Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams transferred from Oklahoma, I believe. And then, of course, he's been an absolute rock star at USC. And then, obviously, he has a great coach with Lincoln Riley, who's an offensive genius. He's a natural offensive genius because he did get he has Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Baker Mayfield obviously is kind of teetering between in and out of kind of being a starter and all, but Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts have been starters for when they've been playing in the NFL, and now Caleb Williams is probably the next man up in that kind of resume of his because he transferred from Oklahoma with basically to play with Lincoln Riley, and Riley and Williams did get some help from the transfer portal, but it's just they did a great job kind of turning this USC program around just because they went 11-2 this year with their only two losses to the same team, the Utah Utes. Obviously, that sucks just because I'm from SoCal. I want to see USC get a little bit more of that old school kind of respect. I didn't really get to remember growing up because I know they were crazy good in the early mid 2000s with Pete Carroll minding that helm as well, Reggie Bush, all those great players. But obviously, due to the NCAA regulations and their kind of West Coast bias, they hit USC hard. But glad to see they're doing good, and a lot of it is because of Caleb Williams coming in and helping the team get 7 more wins. That's a big deal. And then obviously as an individual, 37 passing touchdowns, which is tied for first in the nation. 10 more on the ground as well. He has 4,075 yards as well. Passing the football, which is 4th in the nation as well. And so he's obviously great as an individual. He can move around. He's 6'1". I know he's not like kind of Josh Allen, who's more like 6'3". I know Justin Herbert 6'4" as well. He's not like that kind of big, but he's only a few inches off. He's still young. Might have a little bit more time to grow taller, and then he's a big arm as well. He doesn't really turn the ball over because he only had 4 interceptions this year, which is great. And so I think he can be a genuine first overall pick in next year's draft. I know he's a sophomore this year, so next year will mainly be his main year for the scouts to kind of see. I know Tyler Van Dyke is a pretty popular quarterback as well, but I don't really pay too much attention to college rankings, especially for next year, just because there's still this season to play, and then next season, a lot of the times, who knows who the next quarterback of the future will be? Because an example would be Joe Burrow was kind of he was like 4th or 3rd on the Ohio State depth chart. He transferred to Louisiana State University, LSU, and then he just lights it up, drops 50 touchdowns, one of the best college teams ever, wins a championship, and he gets the first overall pick over Tua Tagovailoa, who was supposed to be the first overall pick, kind of going into this season. So obviously, don't put too much stock into that, but if Caleb Williams plays this year comparable or even better than he did next year, I should say, playing compared to this year, if he has similar stat lines, if he gets a little bit better, he has all the potential in the world to be a franchise quarterback. I understand there's a lot of great quarterbacks in the NFL, but just with his leadership, his kind of physical tools as well, and if he gets another kind of offensive-based coach, which we've kind of seen already, as I mentioned before, with Riley's other quarterbacks he's put in the league, he really, really can make an impact on any team that would be fortunate enough to pick him at number 1. So I'm not sure if there's going to be crash for Caleb, if that's going to be the next kind of draft slugger or not, but it will be pretty interesting to see how that will shake out next year's draft, because I know this year's draft will be, there's a kind of the Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Caleb Williams, Tyler Van Dyke. That might be the next one we'll see as well. So thank you for listening to this kind of impulsive podcast episode. The next episode will be on Friday, so if you guys have anything to let me know, put in the comments, of course. All my social medias are in the link tree in my in the description of this video. There should also be in my bio on my YouTube page as well. So thank you for listening. Hope you guys have a great day.